Hi, I'm Benton Stokes.
And I'm Elane O'Rourke.
And this is Cocktail Theology. So our cocktail tonight has a very provocative name.
I'm afraid to ask, but I'm also titillated.
It's very frightening.
I'm ready.
Satan's Whiskers.
Satan's Whiskers?
Ooh, yes.
Is Satan like the cat Satan on that spinoff of Bewitched? What was the name? What was the name of that? Sabrina. Okay.
Yeah.
No? Okay.
No. It's called Satan's Whiskers, and I can't really help you with why. It is. I found it
it's
in
about a cat, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I found it in the Drunkard's Almanac.
Okay, all the things.
So many things. But it is a cocktail that is gin based.
Yay.
It has dry gin, it has dry vermouth, it also has sweet vermouth. It has, in our case, some French triple sec because we didn't have Cointreau. And then it has orange bitters. It calls for a tiny bit of orange juice. We didn't have any, so we're going to go without it.
Okay, the color is gorgeous.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
Okay, I'm ready. It's actually golden.
It's very golden.
Truly golden. Oh, I like that.
That's not bad.
I like the orange bitters and the French triple sec, which is really dry. I should point that out to people. It's not like the triple sec you normally put in margaritas.
Right. So it's a fairly dry drink, but it's good. It is.
Yeah, I like it. It plays against the gin really well. And did you use the Nolay in this?
I did.
Okay. Yeah, very good. I like it.
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay.
But it pairs nicely with our subject matter.
Yes, it does. I think you're very clever for having found it.
So tonight we are talking about Satan.
Satan!
Yeah. So I grew up with the idea of Satan being kind of like the caricature. Kind of an evil, hand-wringing character that lives in hell. And, hell is somewhere over there. And
Missouri, I think.
Maybe. And there with Satan is where all of the souls that didn't invite Jesus, to come into their hearts or whatever.
Okay.
That's where they dwell after they die.
Okay.
So it's a place of dread and punishment and fire and torment, and Satan is the ringmaster.
All right.
Satan also has like an army of demons that he can dispatch.
Okay.
A few other things that my upbringing taught me about Satan is that Satan doesn't hear our prayers. So Satan can't know what you're praying for or against.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And Satan can't really read your thoughts. Satan can only read your actions and behaviors and attitudes.
Okay, well that part's good.
Yeah.
Like that part's cool.
Right. Satan basically is responsible for all temptation. So, if you are tempted by something, it's because Satan's tickling your ear or whatever with it.
Okay.
So Satan is a powerful guy. In some ways, I think my upbringing taught me that Satan was pretty darn close to equal to Jesus, which is problematic for a lot of reasons.
Well, it's an official heresy.
And it is a heresy of the church. So there's that. But Satan was somebody that I was really scared of as a kid, and especially as it pertains to end times and, the way that Armageddon's going to roll out. Even though we were taught that Jesus had already conquered death and the grave, it sure did come up a lot.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so there was a lot of fear instilled in young Benton about Satan and hell and not going to hell. And of course, with my upbringing, hell was as easy as sinning and not asking forgiveness and then getting hit by a bus.
Right.
So it was a very scary time.
That sounds scary.
Yeah. I don't hold to really any of those beliefs about Satan anymore, or hell, or my eternal destination. Mm-hmm. But that's where my ideas about Satan started.
In that way of thinking, were Satan and the devil, capital T, capital D devil, the same person? Or not necessarily?
Yeah, I think pretty much the same person. There might have been a distinction made with the tempter and Jesus, where the tempter approaches Jesus when Jesus is fasting. And so there might have been some slight distinction that was at least a different manifestation of that evil character. But yeah, basically Satan was everything bad, and Satan was responsible for everything bad. But there are problems too with saying that, because honestly, the evil that belief system really puts within each of us inherently is kind of bad enough.
Right. If you're already so morally corrupt that you're fighting and scratching your way out of hell throughout your whole life, you don't really actually need Satan in the story.
You don't really need Satan in the story, right?
Right. I mean, really, once you've got the snake, you're kind of done. You don't really need anybody else. You're done.
Yeah. And then Satan, too, is a fallen angel.
Yeah, right. I'd forgotten about that part. Okay. Wow. So many things. So let's do the biblical part first, and then we'll go on to the more interesting question of, well, then, who is Satan, or what is Satan? So the language Satan comes from the word ha, meaning the, Satan, which is the tempter in the Old Testament. So you've got the ha-Satan in Numbers, in the book of Numbers, and most prominently in Job. I've been pacing the world, and so forth. And in Job, of course, the ha-Satan is sort of in league with God, right? God says, "Well, go tempt my servant Job."
Right.
The ha-Satan twirls his mustache, twirls his whiskers, goes off and tempts, and Job comes out of it okay. I mean, horrible, but comes out of it okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the ha-Satan's in there. Then there's also a mention of a fallen angel. The language Lucifer is not in the Bible. It's actually a Latin bad translation. So when the Bible got translated into Latin, the word that was being used there for angel of light was put into Latin as Lucifer, and that became a person, a character in this whole way of thinking about how evil works.
Right, okay.
And then later on, Lucifer got identified with Satan, because you can really only have one serious bad guy who's going to be up against Jesus, right? Like if you're going to go to the heresy, you've got to have one-to-one correspondence, right? So, and I say heresy, I mean that quite literally. So in the 3rd and 4th centuries, when the heresies started really being named and described as Christianity was coming together as a unit. So all the bishops from all over the world, I mean literally all over the world, were trying to make sense of what is Christianity and what isn't. Part of what they were coming up with was what counts as heresy. In other words, what counts as not part of the church. And one of the things that came up was something called Manichaeanism, and there are other versions of this, but it's basically the idea that good and evil are in a battle, a pitched battle. And you can have it be God against Satan, you can have it be Jesus against, it doesn't matter, but a pitched battle, good and evil. And it's really kind of nip and tuck up until the end who's going to win, right? So that's the heresy. I lift that up because one of the things I think fundamentalists who teach that don't understand is that was settled in the 2nd and 3rd century and promulgated in the 4th. In other words, it was important enough that the early Christians, I mean the very early Christians, including Jesus's folks, would be saying, no, that's a pagan idea. I mean, it's a pagan idea that good and evil are in a pitched battle.
Wow.
So let's talk about Satan for a minute. So I already mentioned that Satan is the anglicization of the ha-Satan.
Yes.
Okay? But where I find Satan interesting, setting aside the TV show Charmed, which really had by far the best sense of the hierarchy of demons and where Satan played into it and all of those things of anything, anywhere. Really, if you want to know about Satan, you want to know about demons, just go watch Charmed, because they did it so well. Anyway, but where I learned about Satan as a kid, so I grew up pretty high church Episcopal, but went to church with all my friends because my family didn't go to church very often, but I loved to go to church, so I would go with anybody to any church. So I didn't get a lot of Satan in those groups. Then when I was 8 or 9 or 10, and I don't remember which because I'm terrible at time that way, I went to Texas to stay with my mom's good friend, Henry Fletcher, and his wife and kids for part of the summer. It is a well-known story about how I fell out with them while I was staying there. And I was sent to my Aunt Kiki, who isn't really my aunt, but she was a friend of the family, and she was Catholic. Okay. But she was Catholic in the sticks in Texas.
Yeah, right.
Which made her kind of an oddball.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
So I don't know how I got introduced to the idea of Satan there, but there must have been something. Because I remember so clearly driving in a car in the desert, probably driving back from Texas to California. And there was a thunder and lightning storm. And I remember praying so fervently for God to stop Satan doing this lightning storm.
Oh, wow.
Like okay. I thought it was, at that point in my life, I thought it was a manifestation of Satan.
Wow.
Now, where I got Satan, I cannot tell you. Okay. Yeah. But clearly at some point I'd had this idea impressed upon me, even though Satan wasn't an active character in anything. Okay. Move ahead. I don't know how many decades, not very many decades from there. There was a book that came out called The Satanic Bible that was written by a man named Anton Szandor LaVey. Okay. Which, I mean, he was destined.
Did his mom give him this name?
Right? No, I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, Anton Szandor LaVey started the Church of Satan in the 60s or 70s.
Okay.
That's important to know that.
Yeah.
I think everybody needs to sit with that for a moment. Anybody who grew up with the idea that people have been worshiping Satan forever need to just kind of back the F back and say, Anton started the Church of Satan in the 60s and 70s. Okay. So I don't know how I came across his book, but I came across it. I was fascinated. Like, I knew that book inside and out. If somebody asked me what was on page 67, I could have told them.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, right? And I've tried to figure out over the years why I found it fascinating. But I think it was the first really clear, systematic theology that I'd ever actually read.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, what's interesting about this is LaVey was not a devil worshiper at all. Okay. Right? Like, he played into, the wearing the long dark coats and having the shaved head. Like, he loved the theatrical
the theater
aspect.
of it, right.
And there was definitely a church, whatever that means, mainly a tax deduction, right?
Yes.
But he played into all of that. And there are people who consider themselves Satanists in the Church of LaVey's Satan. But he understood Satan to be a Jungian archetype. Okay. Yeah. And he founded the church, which was actually pretty well reasoned out, as a contrast to what he considered the extremes of y'all's kind of Christianity. And so it was really started and has a heavy dose of critical thinking in it. Okay. And of examination of people's behaviors. And then it was cast in the Satan idea. Right? So he started the Church of Satan, and he bought a house in San Francisco, which may be why I wound up there 30 years later. I don't know. Who knows? But he bought a house in San Francisco, painted it black, and that's where the Church of Satan was. Okay. Anyway, he also played the devil in Rosemary's Baby, which like, you gotta love. I mean, you gotta love this, right? Wow. Okay. So when people talk about the Satanic Church or the Church of Satan, they don't know what they're talking about.
No.
Okay. So LaVey went on to write many other books. I want to, not many. I think he wrote 5 or 6 other books. The last one was published posthumously. He died in, I want to say, 97, somewhere around there. Okay. But I found that fascinating. First of all, it must have had a lot more psychology in it than I was used to at that point, because I really didn't know Jung at that point. I learned Jung later. Okay. But I must have been fascinated by just the imagery of it, right? And I loved things like Vincent Price movies and Rosemary's Baby, which is frankly brilliant. But I loved that kind of stuff growing up. I was totally into it. So I'm sure I saw the name of the book and went, whoa, right? Yeah. Yeah. But looking back, I know that the fact that that book wasn't actually about sacrificing children, for example.
Yeah.
And the fact that it had a system to it, that it was somebody trying to reason things out and create ritual around it, I am sure, had a huge influence on my sense of the structure of philosophy and faith.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
So the people I had gone to stay with in Texas when I got into this whole Satan's doing the lightning storm, again, beats me. They were Pentecostal, and they were like serious Pentecostal.
Okay.
So they had the evil thing going as well.
Definitely.
But then they also had the spirit thing going, and all of it was emotion, right? It was all emotion.
Right.
You get to the Satanic Bible, and it's not emotion. It's just bloop, 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 bloop. Oh, bloop, 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 bloop. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's theology.
Yeah.
Sort of. So I am sure that whatever combination of things happened in my emotions and in my brain, because I'm not a stupid person, must have gone click, 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 and said, whoa, this is cool.
Wow.
Right? Not like I ever worship Satan, okay? Everybody just needs to just get a hold of that, okay? Mm-hmm. But it tells you that this whole notion of Church of Satan is much more like the Salem witch trial satanic churches, which didn't exist, right? Than it is like an actual church that worships the guy who runs hell.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
And the reason I bring all of this up is because I think that some of our listeners, probably not all, but some of them grew up with this idea that there are all of these devil worshippers out there who are dangerous. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. So then you get these conspiracy theories, right? Which can fly really fast, that some politician is executing babies to Satan in their, basement.
Right.
And people start going nuts.
Right.
Everybody take a deep breath with me. Right? So I think that all of this stuff about Satan, whether or not there is a hell, whether or not there is someone who's the ringmaster of it, I love that language, by the way, that's perfect. Any of those things is so much about how we try to make sense out of our own impulses that we know are not life-giving.
Exactly. Right.
I mean, there is nobody in the world, or very few people, who say to themselves, I want to make the world a worse place. We all think that we're either doing something that will serve us or trying to make the world a better place. There's no, I'm going to not serve myself and I'm going to make the world a worse place. People just, that's just not how people think.
No.
Right?
No.
We all justify our own fears, our own cravings, our own desires, however that works.
Yeah.
And I think that for those of us who are really afraid of the multitude of feelings we have, the things that will cause us to yell at our children when we're not mad at our children, we're mad at our boss, and then we feel terrible about it. And when we're trying to explain some of the real horrors that human beings will do to one another, we're looking for something to explain it.
Yeah.
And what a certain stream of Christianity came up with was this guy Satan.
Right.
Who was also a fallen angel. So you get this whole mythology around this that then people try to read back into the Bible. It's not there.
It's not there.
It's fun to watch when people do this. It's like, wow, that took some effort. But it really is. And this is where I think LaVey got it right. I think his understanding of Satan as being this archetype, this particular stand-in for all of these other feelings, all of these other things that are going on, I think he was exactly right about that. Yeah. Wow. The interesting thing that you said about how it was sort of like an introduction to systematic theology for you, and it probably also started to help you organize all the information you had gathered from all these different kinds of churches that you had been involved in as a kid. And then you're just like filing things. Well, where does that belong? Well, where does that belong? And then it just started to help you organize all of those thoughts and all of those observances. Yes. Observations, right. Well, and observances, both, right? Yeah. Because when I was growing up, my closest friends were Romanian Apostolic. So I would go to their church, which started at like 9 in the morning and ended about 9 at night. I mean, it was multiple worship services with lots of food in between and that kind of thing. And then a Christian Scientist,
Wow.
and Catholics.
Yeah.
Those are my closest friends,
Yeah.
which is a really kind of wild combination of theology.
Well, then you throw in Episcopalian.
Right. High church Episcopalian.
Right. Smells and bells.
And then my friends, it smells and bells. And then my friends who are the Pentecostals. Right?
Yeah.
And I know my little theological happy brain was going, whoa, wait, okay, hang on a second. How does this all work together?
Yeah.
And then I read that book and went, oh. So I was fascinated by it.
Sure.
But I'm sure it had nothing to do with evil because it was never a proclamation of evil.
Yeah.
Right? But I think actually Satan had a lot more influence on my theology than that concept does now.
Yeah.
But certainly helped me to understand how to piece together these things about human beings.
Right.
Why a horned goat god became a symbol of Satan.
Yeah.
Because that was the pagan god.
Yeah.
And goats, so goats, one of the things about goats is they have these really weird eyes. Their pupils actually go in a specific direction. They're not round.
Yes, that's right.
Right? So they're weird looking.
Yeah.
Okay? As opposed to sheep. So I am sure that we are such creative creatures. We're made in the image of God. I am sure that whoever was trying to make sense out of all of this, and including, the medieval physicians who were trying to make sense of miscarriages and things like that, all of that stuff, that's how their brains put it all together.
Yeah.
They were trying to systematize their world.
Right. There's probably nobody listening that doesn't have some sort of a concept around what Satan or who Satan is. We would love to hear from you. We would love your questions and comments on everything we've talked about and all the things we didn't talk about, because there's a lot of things.
I would love to hear more.
Yeah, so please reach out. Cocktailtheology.com is where you find us. We love suggestions for episodes, suggestions for cocktails. If you want a recipe for Satan's Whiskers, I will happily pass it along. Just send me a note and we'll do that. Cocktailtheology.com is where we are.
I don't even know what to say after this, except I want to go light some black candles.
Right.
Because that happens.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks. Bye.